Hello and welcome to ForumIAS. These are all the articles that we are going to see today, and their relevance for prelims and mains examination are given here. Because the mains is approaching, we'll also be seeing some mains relevant articles. The first article of the day is about Kerala fishermen. Why this is in news is because the centre had issued draft guidelines on high seas fishing beyond 200 nautical mile jurisdiction. So basically, what is high seas? There needs to be a clarity on what is high seas. We will see that in the next slide. So what happens is that the Kerala fishermen, they are accusing the government of handing over the fishing rights to corporations, to monopolies. Government's reasoning is that the high seas, which are considered to be global commons. So every country has right over high seas, right? So the government's reasoning is that the high seas, they are extensively exploited by countries like Japan, Korea, China, EU, etc. And we are not capitalizing on this resource. That is why this new guidelines looks for introducing big ships, big trawlers in order to carry out fishing in high seas. What are these trawlers? So here we have a picture of a trawler. This is called as bottom trawling. So there is a net and it just scoops the fishes into the net. So this is a very industrialized method of fishing, and most of the countries, especially we have Japan, China, Korea, they extensively use the Pacific Ocean to undertake trawlers. The process is called as trawling, and these boats, these ships, they are called as trawlers. So, India should also be able to compete with these bigger powers who are extensively utilizing the sea assets, right? So, that is the reason why the centre has come out with this regulation, or rather guidelines. Okay, now we will see what is high sea. So, here we have a diagram. We have to know what is territorial sea. What is exclusive economic zone, and then high seas. Alright, so up to 12 nautical mile from the baseline. So here we have the baseline. See, here we have the baseline. So this line is the baseline. From baseline up to 12 nautical mile is the territorial sea. So we measure distance in land using miles or kilometers, right? But in seas, in water bodies, distance is measured using nautical miles. Beyond this 12 nautical mile, it is called as exclusive economic zone. Between this is the exclusive economic zone. And beyond this 200 nautical mile mark is the high sea. Okay, so what are all the rights of a particular country in the territorial sea? We'll see. Okay, the coastal states, they have sovereignty and jurisdiction over the territorial sea. So basically it is nothing but territory. If you have to understand it easily, we'll make an equivalence that territorial sea is equal to territory. So for a country, even the territorial sea is considered as its territory. That is why they are saying that these rights extend not only on the surface but also to the seabed, the subsoil, the soil under the seabed, and even airspace. But there is a right of innocent passage. What is this right of innocent passage? That is, foreign ship, they can pass through this territorial sea. But it is innocent passage. We can't have military vessels, foreign merchant ships. Like how we have goods train, right? There are merchant ships like that, like cargo flights. We have merchant ships. They can pass through the territorial sea. Okay. Now we have exclusive economic zone which extends up to 200 nautical miles. So in this region, there are rights to explore, exploit, conserve and manage the natural resources, whether they are living or non-living, of the seabed or subsoil. So which means in this region, India can undertake fishing and we can also extract the resources which are present in the continental shelf. We already know that oil wealth is present in the continental shelf. Okay, so for that purposes, we can utilize the resources. We can even conduct activities like production of energy from the water, that is ocean thermal energy. We have tidal energy, etc. We can produce. Using the currents, ocean currents also, we can produce energy, wind. But the freedom of navigation cannot be restricted. Even in this region, you can undertake only resource extraction. You can't affect the freedom of navigation. Say for example, if a Chinese ship comes into the exclusive economic zone of India, we can't restrict that ship. But if that military ship comes into the territorial sea, we can restrict. Any area that is beyond the 200 nautical mile, that is the high sea. It is in the seaward side. Okay, and this high sea already, as I said, it is considered to be global commons. Now we go back to the article. Now you understand, right? Why the Kerala fishermen are protesting, why they are having adverse opinion on these new guidelines and what is it that they want, right? We understood the exclusive economic zone, we understood what is territorial sea, we understood what is high sea. That is it for this article. We'll move to the next article. This is from the editorial section and this is a very interesting article. Why? Because it has been written by two prominent personalities, Mrs. Sheikh Hasina, who is the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, and Mohammad Nasheed. He used to be the President of Maldives. Now he is the Speaker of Maldivian Parliament. Two prominent personalities have written this article, so it becomes all the more important for us to discuss this. Now, why this article is in news? It is because of the COP28. COP28 means what? Conference of Parties. Conference of Parties. And this is the 28th meeting of the Conference of Parties to which convention? UNFCCC. Okay, so this is going to happen in UAE, and as a result of that, UAE Minister Sultan Al Jaber, he has been made as the head of the COP28. He is the President Designate of COP28. But this minister, Sultan Al Jaber of UAE, he is the head of, or rather the CEO of Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. So because he is a head of an organization which produces fossil fuels, US and European parliamentarians, they want to unseat the president designate. They are saying that for a body like UNFCCC, which wants to control climate change, which wants to reduce the emissions, how can we appoint a person who is the CEO of an oil company, of such a big oil company? Isn't it hypocritical? So that is the argument of US and European parliamentarians. Now, the authors of this article are trying to put forward their opinions on this matter. So basically, if we see, if you remember the map, Maldives is an island nation and Bangladesh is a coastal nation and it is in the sea level, right? So it is more susceptible to climate change. If a country is more susceptible to climate change, it is called as a climate vulnerable country, right? there is a climate vulnerable forum, and it is a group of 58 of the world's most climate vulnerable countries. Why they are considered vulnerable? Because of their geography, and also they house 1.5 billion of the world's poorest people. So these people will be most affected if there is a cyclone, if there is any adverse weather event, if there is a drought, because of the geography of this region. So the authors of this article, who belong to the countries Bangladesh and Maldives, they form a part of these climate vulnerable countries, and they are a prominent member of the Climate Vulnerable Forum. And in the last 2 decades alone, why are they very concerned? In the last 2 decades alone, they have undergone economic losses of about $500 billion. Such is the extent of damage that was caused in the last 2 decades, the preceding 2 decades. That is the reason why these countries are very concerned, very much apprehensive about climate change. And it is not the reason that these countries are very much industrialized. Bangladesh is now getting industrialized, but the effect of climate change that is happening now, it is not because of yesterday's industrialization of Bangladesh. It is because of historical industrialization which happened in UK, France, Germany, etc. That is impacting these vulnerable countries now. That is the point that they are trying to make in this article also. That is the point that they are making through groups like Climate Vulnerable Forum. And this minister of UAE, that is Minister Sultan Al Jaber, who is the president designate of COP28. Not only is he the CEO of Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, he has led Masdar. Masdar is a renewable energy company. By this logic, he remains as a very suitable candidate, right? So, that is why the authors are arguing that it is not that. The system is much more nuanced than that. He has headed Masdar, which is a renewable energy company, and it had made huge investments in solar and wind projects. And moreover, we have Masdar entering into agreement with International Renewable Energy Agency, that is IRENA. With this IRENA, Masdar entered into an agreement, and what is this agreement? It says that they want to triple the global renewable energy capacity by 2030. Okay, so such is the record of Minister Sultan Al Jaber. By this record, he remains a very suitable candidate. There is no need to unseat him. That is the point put forward by the authors of this article. And they are also talking about other aspects of COP28. The main thing with respect to climate change negotiations is the finance aspect of it. Here also this is being reiterated, and the parties are saying that finance is crucial for COP28. And we have Bangladesh, which has the Climate Prosperity Plan. What is the meaning of Climate Prosperity Plan? It is to generate inward investment of tens of trillions of dollars in building clean energy infrastructure. So, Climate Prosperity Plan is to attract inward investments, especially for green projects. And what does it mean when we talk about climate prosperity? What does this mean? That is, many of these countries, many of these climate vulnerable countries, right? They are very poor countries, and growth is the utmost priority for them. Growth is non-negotiable. Just because we want to control the emissions, we cannot prevent these poor countries from growing. We cannot prevent these countries from expanding. They are in need of that. They are some of the poorest of the poor countries. So, their prospects should not be curtailed so that rich countries can keep polluting. Even today, the per capita emission is so huge in EU and America. Right? Comparatively, even India and China don't emit that much. So that is the logic that is being applied here. Climate prosperity agenda says that growth for poorest countries is non-negotiable. So, in that case, if the global countries, if the international arena, they want these countries like Bangladesh, Maldives, Vietnam, like developing countries like these to curtail their level of pollution, then there needs to be tens of trillions of dollars of incoming investments. Then only they will be in a position to do so. Otherwise, they can't put their economic growth in the back burner. That is the idea behind climate prosperity plan. And similarly, Bangladesh has this climate prosperity plan, which is named after Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who is the father of modern Bangladesh. He was instrumental in the independence of Bangladesh. On his name, there is a climate prosperity plan in Bangladesh. One more issue that is plaguing these countries like Bangladesh, Maldives, Sri Lanka, etc., is the debt barrier. They have obtained so much of credit from other developed and developing countries, and it is becoming unsustainable. These countries are not in a position to repay the debts. That is why it is unsustainable and they are crippled by these debts. And moreover, we have climate damages. Even if one cyclone attacks these countries, then they will suffer huge losses. In order to make good these losses, again they have to take loan. So this becomes a never-ending cycle. That is why they are in so much debt, because they are affected by problems related to climate change, which is caused by emissions elsewhere. So, what needs to be done in this regard? There needs to be a collective approach which recognizes the debt problem, and because of this debt problem only, it acts as a barrier. It acts as a barrier to clean energy investment. Why? Half of the money goes into repaying the debt. And how come these countries are not that very rich? They have to provide subsidies for their population and they have to also repay the debts. In this context, they fall short of the money that needs to be invested in clean energy. So this is a very big problem. So what the authors of this article are saying that sovereign wealth funds and multilateral development banks, they could come and assist in de-risking the restructured debts. So these countries would go to their lender and they'll say to the lender, I can't pay this much of amount. Restructure my debt please. So their lender, maybe it is China, they are agreeing, say there is $50 million of debt. China says that, okay, you repay me at least $30 million and for that I need a guarantee. These multilateral development banks, these sovereign wealth funds, etc., they can provide the guarantee. They can bring about a sustainable solution for these bad debts of least developed countries. In the last COP, that is in COP 27, which was held in Sharm el-Sheikh. Where is this Sharm el-Sheikh? You comment on the comment section below. Let me see how much attention you are paying. Okay. So in that COP 27, there was a loss and damage fund which was secured. So it will pay for loss and damages that are caused by climate change related adverse events. So the authors are calling to say that this should not become an empty promise. The developed countries, that is fossil fuel dependent economies, they have to start making subscriptions to support funding for climate change in these most vulnerable countries. So if they contribute, these fossil fuel dependent economies, if they contribute to the loss and damage fund, it will be very helpful in climate adaptation in these least developed countries and also the countries which are more vulnerable to climate change. So if Sultan Al-Jaber is becoming the COP president, it is a meaningful opportunity. Why? Because he has worked in the fossil fuel sector and he has also worked in the renewable energy sector. So we can get a very holistic perspective and we can meaningfully engage with the fossil fuel industry and we can bring about some significant and quantifiable commitments to emission cuts. That is possible only if we are bringing them to the negotiating table. Unless if we are shunning these people who are in the fossil fuel industry, how can emission reduction be achieved without the cooperation of these stakeholders, right? That is the point being made by the authors of this article. Overall, this article talks about particularly vulnerable countries to climate change and the debt barriers that they are in and how can the other countries help in mitigating that problem and how these vulnerable countries can secure finance for sustainability and climate action. That is what is being discussed in this article. Now let us move on to the next article. It says that Gita Press Gorakhpur, they have been awarded the Gandhi Peace Prize for 2021. So we will see more about this article. So this prize has been conferred to Gita Press in Gorakhpur and they are one of the largest publishers of religious texts such as Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Upanishads, etc. So in the citation of the Gandhi Peace Prize, they are saying that Gita Press has made outstanding contribution towards social, economic, political transformation through non-violent and other Gandhian methods. So for our prelims purpose, we have to know about the Gandhi Peace Prize. So this Gandhi Peace Prize, it was instituted in 1995 on the occasion of the 125th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. So it carries an amount of 1 crore, a citation, a plate and an exquisite handcraft or handloom item. Previously, which were the institutions and personalities who were awarded with the Gandhi Peace Prize? It was Indian Space Research Organization, Ramakrishna Mission, Grameen Bank of Bangladesh, Vivekanand Kendra in Kanyakumari, Sulabh International NGO of New Delhi. Apart from that, personalities such as former President of South Africa Nelson Mandela, social worker Baba Amte, Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa, environmentalist Chandi Prasad Bhatt, and Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman of Bangladesh. These are all the organizations and these are all the personalities who have previously secured this Gandhi Peace Prize. So this Gita Press, we have to know a little bit about them so that it would be useful for other exams, non-UPSC exams. So far, they have published 41.7 crore books in 14 languages and this includes 16.21 crore copies of the Bhagavad Gita. And this Gita Press, they'll be completing 100 years of its establishment in 2023. This would be their centenary year and it becomes more fitting for them to achieve this Gandhi Peace Prize. Let's move on to the next article. Next article says that the center has restricted FCI purchases and as a result of this, the states are looking for alternatives. Okay, so what it is, we'll look. Okay, now, so basically there is something called as open market sale scheme. So what happens is the central government through the Food Corporation of India FCI, it assigns food grains to various states. State 1, State 2, etc. Okay. In order to implement the National Food Security Act. Now what happens is several states like Tamil Nadu, what they do is they not only provide the center's assignment that they get, over and above that they also subsidize, they also provide more food grains. Whatever the center has promised, over and above that, they will add their share of subsidy and they will give more food grains to their residents. So, where will this state go and purchase for their grains? They will go through the open market sale scheme. So, in this, what happens is, individual buyers, they will bid for the grains from FCI. So, FCI will conduct an e-auction, and these states and other buyers, say for example, DMart wants to buy rice, they can also go and bid in this e-auction. States can also go and bid in this e-auction. NGOs can go and bid in this e-auction. So, they will procure through this e-auction. So, what happens is that the center, they have recently decided that the quantity that a bidder can purchase in a single bid under the open market sale scheme domestic from the Food Corporation of India, which we saw here, it will range from 10 to 100 tons. So, minimum they can bid for 10 tons and maximum they can bid for 100 tons. Earlier, the quantity was 3000 tons per bid for a buyer. So, this limit has been decreased, and as a result of that, states are suffering because their requirement is huge. It cannot be limited to 100 tons. Okay, and why the central government has come up with this provision? In order to accommodate more small and marginal buyers, say a local supermarket in any tier 2 town, they can even approach the FCI and they can now buy. Earlier, this used to happen, but at a very small scale, because all the auction is crowded out by bigger entities like states, multinational corporations, bigger units, right? So that is the reason these small and marginal buyers were not able to effectively participate in this e-auction. So in order to accommodate these small and marginal buyers, the center has come up with this limit of 10 to 100 tons. So if these small and marginal buyers, they buy this stock, they will immediately go to their shop and sell it. So the stock will reach the general public immediately. Another reasoning that the center has given is that the inflationary trends are kept under control while also ensuring adequate stock levels in the central pool. That is why state governments have been excluded from the ambit of open market sales scheme. So, the center's shares that will reach the states, but it's just that they can not buy through e-auction the extra that they need for their public distribution program. So, that is what the article says. And we have to know a little bit about OMSs for prelims purpose. So, we already saw, right, there will be an e-auction, and why this open market sale is done? To dispose of surplus stocks. You might not remember, but when Dr. Manmohan Singh used to be the Prime Minister of India, what happened was the FCI had lot of food grains. It had a lot of buffer stock that it was being eaten by the rats in the godown. But this was not released into the public because it will lead to inflationary pressures. If there is more supply, it will lead to inflation. Right? So, that is the reason why it was not, I made a mistake here, excuse me. So, what happened was the godowns, they had a lot of surplus. So, this surplus is released into the market. What will happen? The market will collapse because there is abundant surplus, abundant supply. Then the prices will fall drastically. And how will the farmer get the value? So, we cannot release the surplus at once. We can periodically sell them. That is the purpose of OMSs. That is why it is written here. The purpose of OMSs is to dispose surplus stocks of wheat and rice held by FCI to regulate the prices of wheat in the open market. So that is the purpose here which has been explained. And FCI, they conduct weekly auctions. They release little bit of surplus every week so that market is not distorted. And this e-auction takes place through National Commodity and Derivatives Exchange India Limited, NCDEX, which is a commodities exchange. Like in share market, shares are bought and sold. In this NCDEX, that is the commodity exchange, commodities are bought and sold. Okay, that is it for this article. Next article, it is about the Y chromosome. We know, right, how the process of reproduction takes place in the chromosomal level. We have the woman and the man. The woman has XX chromosomes and the man has XY chromosome. If the child inherits XX chromosome, then it is a girl, and if the child inherits X chromosome from the mother and Y chromosome from the father, then the child becomes male. So this is the process. So what this article is saying, that this Y chromosome, there is a fear of losing the Y chromosome in the distant future. And this has happened in some species. And what we need to do about it? How can a chromosome be lost? That is what we are going to see in this article. Okay. So we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. That means we have 46 chromosomes. Right. So out of the 23 pairs, we have 22 pairs, and we can split this as 22 plus 1. So this one pair is the sex chromosome called as X and Y. All biological males have X and Y chromosomes. All biological females have 2 X chromosomes. We already saw. So the sex determining region Y. So Y chromosome determines the biological male sex. This Y chromosome, it has some characteristics because of which it is called as a juvenile delinquent. Juvenile delinquent. What does the word juvenile delinquent means? A child criminal who has been held guilty of a crime before he reaches the age of 18. That is the meaning of juvenile delinquent. Why this Y chromosome is called as juvenile delinquent is because it possesses some characteristics which are similar to the characteristics of an average juvenile delinquent. So, abundance of repetitive sequences. So, there will be repetitive sequences. We know the chromosomes have sequences, right? So, we have the base pairs in DNA, right? Adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. There will be pairing like this, A, G, C, T, A, G, A, G, like that. They will have a sequence. So what it is saying is Y chromosome have abundance of repetitive sequences and they have poor functional utility. That is, in this chromosome there are smaller number of genes. Reluctance to socialize. That is, it does not easily recombine with other chromosomes. High proclivity to degenerate over the course of evolution. So these are all the properties of Y chromosome. This is given in quite a bit of depth which is not needed for exam, but I am explaining this for understanding purpose. They have repetitive sequences. They have small number of genes, which means that it is not very much useful functionally and it does not recombine with other chromosomes and it will degenerate over the course of evolution. Why? Because it does not recombine with other chromosomes. So over a period of time it will regenerate. Okay, so because it does not have the potential to recombine, that is why this Y chromosome remains intact and it is passed from father to son. Okay, so this Y chromosome, it is seen as the legacy of a generation. So the Y chromosome your great grandfather had, if you are a boy, if you are a man, you will have the same Y chromosome. The problem is it degenerates over the course of time. Okay, and this Y chromosome, it possesses genes that are vital to biological functions. So generally it was believed that this Y chromosome has poor functional utility. But recently it has been found out that Y chromosome possesses certain genes which are vital for biological functions, including aging and lifespan regulation. So men lose Y chromosome with age, and if they are losing their Y chromosome, it means that they will suffer higher frequency. So there is higher frequency of cancers, Alzheimer's disease, a shorter lifespan. These are all more prevalent in men than old age women, because the men, they lose the Y chromosomes with age. As long as the Y chromosome is intact in them, they are able to lead a healthy life. So it has some bearing on biological functions and lifespan regulation. So this loss of Y, LOY means loss of Y chromosome. So it will result in weak heart muscles, that is cardiomyopathy, stretched or thickened heart tissue, that is fibrosis, and heart failure. Okay, so these are all associated with loss of Y chromosome. There has been rapid evolution of Y chromosome. Why? Because the scale at which humans reproduce, it has undergone a massive shift over the period of time, right? The population boom was like anything during the 1960s, 70s, 80s, etc. So, human Y chromosome, it is about 1/3 as big as the X chromosome. If the X chromosome looks something like this is the shape of a chromosome. A Y chromosome, it looks like this. It's bigger than the X chromosome. That is what is said because of the rapid evolution. Rapid evolution, why? Because human population has boomed over the years. And so many animal species, they have genuine fear of losing the Y chromosome. And this has already happened in species such as rodents. So in that case, what will happen? Some other chromosome, it will be repurposed into Y chromosome. Okay, so what is the takeaway from this is Y chromosome, it is called as juvenile delinquent, and it determines the biological male sex. I'll use some other color now just to revise this for you. This Y chromosome, it is responsible for biological male sex. It is called as juvenile delinquent because of these properties, and it has a very little potential to recombine. That is why it is being passed from father to son, and it is vital to the lifespan regulation in men. And this Y chromosome, it has undergone a rapid evolution, and this is because of rapid pace of human population expansion, and the size of Y chromosome is bigger than the X chromosome, and some organisms have lost their Y chromosome. As a result of it, some other chromosome is repurposed into Y chromosome. That is it about this article. It can come in statement based question in your UPSC Prelims. Okay, now we will discuss some questions. Which one of the following best describes the term merchant discount rate, sometimes seen in news? The incentive given by a bank to a merchant for accepting payments through debit cards pertaining to that bank. B. The amount paid back by banks to their customers when they use debit cards for financial transactions for purchasing goods or services. This is totally ridiculous because bank is not going to give money to the customers for using their debit card. The charge to a merchant by a bank for accepting payments from his customers through bank's debit cards. D. The incentive given by the government to merchants for promoting digital payments by their customers through point of sale machines and debit cards. So, merchant discount rate though it has the word discount, it is the charge that is incurred by a merchant if he is accepting payment through point of sale machine. So answer is C. Next question. What is or are the consequence or consequences of a country becoming the member of nuclear suppliers group? It will have access to latest and most efficient nuclear technologies. That is correct. It will automatically become the member of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons (NPT). This is wrong. If some country wants to become member of NPT, they have to sign the treaty. Membership to nuclear suppliers group. Generally, it is like this. If they are NPT member, then they are eligible to become member of NSG, that is the nuclear suppliers group. But one exception was India, which is not a part of NPT. Still, it became a part of NSG. So, just because India became member of NSG, it didn't become a part of NPT, right? So, statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is wrong, answer is A. Next question. He wrote biographies of Mazzini, Garibaldi, Shivaji and Sri Krishna, stayed in America for some time and was also elected to the Central Assembly. He was A. Aurobindo Ghosh, B. Bipin Chandra Pal, C. Lala Lajpat Rai, D. Motilal Nehru. Answer is C. Lala Lajpat Rai. So that is it for today's discussion. Follow us on all the social media channels. This is Indumati signing off. Thank you and all the best.